California Governor Gavin Newsom is now calling his city's homeless encampments unacceptable, which is odd since he's the guy who, made them acceptable, turning sidewalks into red carpet events for drug addicts, thieves, and unemployed CNN anchors. On Monday, he urged cities to ban the camps from sidewalks, parks, and other public areas. So after years of denying the problem, he's now pretending to fix it, which is like putting on a condom as you're leaving a whorehouse.
Gavin Newsom completely lost his composure, live, raw, and fully exposed. After Greg Gutfeld went after him like a California wildfire, blazing out of control on national television with razor-sharp wit and relentless precision, Greg tore into the governor's record, his swollen ego, and even his well-known love for hair gel in one shocking takedown that left viewers stunned in silence. This wasn't a lighthearted roast. It was a full-scale beatdown, a harsh public collapse that cracked Newsom's polished image right in front of everyone watching. His breakdown wasn't just emotional. It felt like an earthquake, as if the ground beneath his carefully built persona suddenly gave way while his frustration poured out in plain sight. The audience stayed glued to their screens because this wasn't typical political back and forth. It was a complete unraveling at the highest level, the kind people would remember, replay, and argue about for years to come.
Let's take a closer look at this with a spot shadow, or no spot shadow. What exactly is he trying to say here, huh? Is it a mysterious form of sign language for morons? Is he conveying some secret code to terrorists? Is he signaling the Los Angeles Angels to steal third base?
Before we go any further, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe because you really don't want to miss this showdown. Greg Gutfeld stepped into the studio with his trademark smirk, the kind that lets you know something big is about to happen. Everyone could feel it. Someone was about to get called out. His target was Gavin Newsom, the self-proclaimed champion of progressive politics, known just as much for his perfectly styled hair as for his bold promises. Gutfeld didn't need to shout to make his point. He stayed calm and sharp, using sarcasm with careful precision, choosing each word like a well-aimed strike, ready to cut through the polished image and reveal the cracks underneath.
Welcome to a new segment called Gavin's Hands. He keeps his hands in motion and his hair full of lotion. True, Gavin's views may be idiotic, but his hands moves, well, they're hypnotic. California Governor Newsom's new podcast is out. It's available wherever fine hair care products are sold.
Greg Gutfeld started with a light jab, almost playful, teasing Gavin's polished image before moving in with the stronger punches. He joked that Gavin Newsom doesn't just walk into a room. He makes an entrance like he's in a slow-motion cologne commercial, glowing as if the world adjusts the spotlight just for him. Even on a cloudy day, Gutfeld laughed that Gavin's smile probably shines brighter than California's shaky power grid on the rare days it actually works. And if politicians were products, he said Newsom would be high-end skincare, flashy, expensive, and leaving behind problems nobody wants to admit. It was a perfect setup, clever and sarcastic, warming up the crowd before the real storm rolled in.
So the riots aren't a protest against authoritarianism, they're a protest against order. Once you conflate order with authoritarianism, you get chaos and destruction. So if restoring order is evil, then the Dems are now the party of disorder. Turns out the only system they had was wokeism, and it rotted any basic principles the party had to begin with. Which is why, like Gavin himself, they're left looking at 2028's hopes going up in flames.
But Greg Gutfeld wasn't there just to crack jokes about perfect hair and bright smiles. He shifted the focus straight to California, the so-called paradise Gavin had promised. Instead of a golden example, Greg described it like a gated community with broken elevators, overpriced coffee, and sidewalks packed with abandoned electric scooters. He joked that Newsom's idea of progress looks less like stability and more like confusion, like a trendy wine bar getting robbed by a guy in flip-flops, while the staff calmly offers him kale and asks if he needs a safe space. It was a harsh image, funny but cutting, showing how far Gavin's vision seems to have drifted from the dream he once sold.
So Newsom is fed up with tent cities, the crime, the urban decay? No, he's not mad about that stuff. He's mad you noticed. It's like a criminal telling a jury he's sorry he robbed 25 banks when he's just sorry he got caught on the 26th. Because this isn't some spontaneous crisis. It's a man-made disaster like Chernobyl or Fox and Friends.
When the spotlight turned to homelessness, Greg Gutfeld didn't just bring it up. He launched it like a missile straight at the heart of Gavin Newsom's record. He tore into Newsom's approach, calling it a dangerous mix of empty slogans, flashy TED Talk lines, and budgeting so reckless it would get a teenager grounded for life. Under his policies, San Francisco has turned into a scavenger hunt, with people desperately searching for clean sidewalks or bathrooms free of discarded needles. With his trademark razor-sharp sarcasm, Greg pointed out that tourists now take selfies in front of crime scenes because that's the most authentic California memory they can bring home. The audience laughed, but the painful truth made every joke hit even harder.
Why? What difference does that make? Why shouldn't a restaurant/bakery be subject to the same laws as everybody else? Is the bakers' union that powerful? If you cross them, will you wind up with the Pillsbury Doughboy's head in your bed? No one will say. But according to a new Bloomberg News report, Newsom pushed for the bread exemption to help a longtime campaign donor, billionaire Greg Flynn, who happens to own a bunch of Panera Bread.
Then came the economy, and Greg didn't hold back. He laughed as he compared Gavin Newsom bragging about jobs leaving the state to an arsonist admiring the smoke from his own fire. California, once the proud fifth largest economy in the world, now stumbles in confusion, competing with mid-tier European nations for the title of most chaotic tax system alive. Greg joked that Gavin's economic playbook must have been drafted over brunch with avocado toast and a dog-eared copy of Marx. With precise, cutting sarcasm, he shredded the endless regulations, rules that strangle businesses but never touch plain common sense. Then came his most ruthless strike. Greg picked apart Newsom's COVID response like a sniper, mocking the lockdowns that hurt kids' education while Gavin dined at the French Laundry. Hypocrisy on full display, a governor sipping Chardonnay with truffle oil while small business owners watched their dreams crumble. And Greg made sure the entire nation both gasped and laughed at the glaring double standard.
It's like the wildfires. Gavin blames climate change when it was his corrupt bureaucracy. Since the Palisades fire, which destroyed 6,000 buildings, only 4 permits have been issued for rebuilding. Did climate change cause that? Hell no. So like the fires, Newsom let homelessness run wild. He allowed tens of billions of dollars to be swallowed up by a maze of consultants, nonprofits, and bureaucrats who created poop mats.
Greg tore into Gavin Newsom's pandemic rules, saying they had all the stability of a melting popsicle. Sticky, messy, and impossible to follow. One day, jogging on the beach was allowed. Next, sitting on a bench was a crime. It was as if Newsom spun a giant color-coded wheel in his office to decide whether kids could play or dogs needed masks. And anyone who questioned him instantly labeled an anti-science radical who didn't understand his brilliant logic. Then came the recall. And instead of learning from mistakes, Newsom returned smugger, shinier, and even more out of touch with everyday Californians. Greg then moved on to crime, mocking the absurd reality where criminals are treated like misunderstood artists and shoplifting has become a competitive sport. He joked that Gavin's idea of crime prevention probably involved hanging polite signs and politely asking thieves to try a career in tech instead.
So our dumbest politicians are getting dumber. It's like a semi-truck full of dumb pills overturned, and Gavin Newsom leaped out of his limo and ate all of them up. And now he's ODing on dumb.
I watched this one guy, was it Jesse Waters or something on Fox News, what he's been saying about Paul Pelosi the last 5-6 months, mocking him consistently. Don't tell me that's not aiding and abetting all this. Of course it is.
Stores are shutting down, families are packing up, and people are leaving the state. Yet Gavin Newsom still claims California is a shining example for the world, as if anyone is lining up for higher taxes, rampant crime, and government-regulated dish soap. Greg didn't stop there. He slammed the education system, saying California schools have become less about teaching and more about indoctrination wrapped in flashy graphics. Parents trying to figure out what their kids are actually learning have to wade through buzzwords, trendy theories, and school boards that treat biology like a choose-your-own-adventure book. He painted administrators under Newsom as caretakers of graveyards, where common sense is buried under piles of diversity consultants. And when it came to housing and energy, Greg struck again, mocking Gavin's endless promises of affordable homes, comparing them to people swearing they'll start dieting every Monday that never do. Rents are skyrocketing. Housing feels like cardboard castles built on fairy dust, and zoning laws are so convoluted they might as well have been written by Kafka in a panic. Worst of all, the only thing more expensive than living in California is leaving it, because even the exit comes with its own mountain of taxes.
Last year, after the Texas Governor Abbott ordered that parents of transitioning children should face criminal investigation, Newsom then tweeted this: "Trans kids and their families should be celebrated, not targeted by the state. They are heroes." And so to fearful families in Texas right now, California's door is always open to you. Yeah, and so is the side door on some pedophile's minivan.
And yet Gavin Newsom keeps grinning, smiling through scandals and shrugging off criticism like a man who's never faced a single tough question outside a carefully staged interview. Greg compared him to a human screensaver, always polished, always moving, but never actually accomplishing anything. He said, "This isn't real leadership, it's influencer politics." Gavin doesn't govern, he curates vibes, turning every press conference into a chance to pose, drop vague slogans, and make people think they're witnessing greatness when really it's just a TED Talk with cheekbones. The idea of Newsom running for president, roasted without mercy. Greg joked it would be like promoting the chef of a sinking cruise ship to lead the Coast Guard. He circled back to Gavin's obsession with appearances, pointing out that behind the smooth speeches, designer suits, and Instagram-ready policies, he's just a politician running on looks instead of principles. Greg labeled him the walking screensaver of progressive cliches, glossy, soothing, and completely useless.
Look online. Look at the sewage that is online.
Sure, Gavin, sure. He lived in a bus, but he definitely had cable. Gav talks like this maniac set his imaginary DVR on his imaginary TV on Fox News every night while wearing Brian Kilmeade pajamas, drinking his own urine out of a Fox Nation mug, and in his beautiful, dilapidated bus of a home.
Greg painted Gavin Newsom as a man so obsessed with his own reflection that he's forgotten to look outside at the real struggles around him. He didn't need to yell or rage. His calm, cutting delivery made every line hit harder, leaving the audience laughing one moment and wincing the next. Beneath the humor was a sharp sting that couldn't be ignored. Newsom may hold the governor's title, but California deserves better after years of poor choices. He's not the leader the state needs if it ever hopes to stop being the punchline of late-night jokes. Just when it seemed Gutfeld had exposed every flaw, he went for the jugular, mocking Gavin's absurd attempts to lecture red states on governing. The irony was brutal. Here was the captain of the sinking SS California, perched in his glass mansion on Mount Delusion, daring to give advice to others. Gutfeld mocked the image of a man who can't even keep the lights on or Walgreens open, lecturing Texas about power grids and Florida about schools. It was, he said, like watching someone lose a race and then give sprinting tips from a stretcher.
He hopes the conservative Supreme Court will overturn the current law that bans his state from removing out-of-control homeless encampments. Imagine that. Well, what did you expect, Gavin? That the sanctuary seekers were going to show up in Winnebagos? Once again, another example of a high-profile lib using his big mouth to write a check his ass can't cash.
Greg mocked Gavin Newsom's strange obsession with Florida's governor, calling it a bizarre, one-sided bromance gone wrong. He painted Gavin as the type to scroll through Florida headlines at midnight, angrily tweeting between sips of oat milk, while Florida quietly grew its economy and built real infrastructure. Meanwhile, Newsom was busy banning plastic utensils and renaming manholes in the name of inclusivity, symbolic stunts that fixed nothing at home. Greg said this wasn't leadership at all, but cosplay for elites who mistake TikTok applause for actual governing. Then he shredded Gavin's national image tour, mocking it as nothing more than rehearsals for a White House stage, complete with mirrors in every corner. Greg joked that Newsom's campaign ad should come with a warning label, highly filtered, results not included. Because while other governors fix roads and fight crime, Gavin poses for cameras and delivers slogans with all the flair of a reality TV housewife filming a dramatic confessional.
Now, it's often said that life is like a crap sandwich. The more bread you have, the less crap you gotta eat. But in Gavin Newsom's California, they mean it literally. California recently passed a law mandating a higher minimum wage for fast food restaurants, raising it from $16 to $20 an hour. but it offers an odd exemption for chains that bake bread and sell it as a standalone item.
Not even California's breathtaking natural beauty escaped Greg Gutfeld's savage humor. He joked that the mountains, beaches, and forests were secretly hoping Idaho would annex them just to get away from the non-stop mismanagement. Tourists might arrive for the sunshine, but they stay for the protests, and leave because of the crushing taxes, creating a cycle so predictable it might as well be scripted. Greg compared California under Gavin Newsom to a bloated sequel nobody asked for. Flashy trailer, stunning scenery, but an ending so terrible it ruins the entire experience. And just when it seemed he might ease up, Greg leaned back, flashed that sly grin, and shrugged, making it clear he was far from finished dismantling Gavin. Because when a politician's failures practically write their own jokes, all it takes is a sharp wit, a microphone, and a front row seat to the chaos for the show to keep rolling.